Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Another edition of Football at 4. Eagles offseason never sleeps, as the guys over at the Inside the Birds podcast and InsideTheBirds.com know oh so well. And he's back again, NFL insider Adam Caplan with the latest on the Eagles. Making moves, not making moves. Greedy Williams met with the media today. Eagles signing a couple more players overnight and this morning. Get to all that and more now with Adam Caplan here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennick filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, welcome in. How you doing today?
I'm well, Josh. Hope you're doing well and your listeners here on 97.3. So, yeah, look, what listeners should understand, the first week of free agency is where the big money goes, particularly the first 3 days. Free agency started last Monday. Teams could agree to deals with players from other teams, and they could actually sign them on a Wednesday. And once you get to Friday, almost all the big-time deals are done. It's different from the NBA. It's fast. It's quick. And now what we see in week 2 are a series of one-year deals. Most are one. Every once in a while you get a 2 or 3 year deal. Most are going to be one, and that's what we've seen from the Eagles the last couple of days.
So let's start with the guy that people probably know the least about. Talk to the folks about who on earth, and I literally had somebody text me this earlier, Adam. I literally had a text from a buddy of mine that said, who on earth is Nicholas Morrow and why should I care?
Yeah, Nick Morrow, I remember, Josh, I go back to the Raiders many years ago when he was a rookie. So I've watched him. He's a smaller linebacker. This kind of fits in here because, as you know, a lot of their inside linebackers over the years have been smaller for the most part. And a lot of tackles with the Bears last season. He's a guy now, he's on his third team. In fact, we got a little treat for you. On tomorrow's Inside the Birds with Greg Cosell, the Intel with Greg Cosell, we actually talked to Greg about Nick Morrow. He's familiar with him. I'm familiar with him because I've actually seen him live at practice when he was with the Raiders in Napa. And the good thing for Morrow is because of what's happened here, the jobs are wide open. Yes, Nakobe Dean is right now is expected to start at one of the inside linebacker jobs. The other one is wide open, and Nick Morrow will compete for one of those jobs. So he's a guy. He's not 6'3". He's about 6 feet, between 6 and 6'1", probably about 230 pounds, maybe a little bit less. And by the way, when I first started covering the league, Josh, the middle linebackers were between 240 and 250. They're anywhere now from 220 to 230. So don't be surprised with how small he is.
What is a realistic expectation? Because he is, as you label, an inside linebacker. What is a realistic expectation for the Eagles? How many linebackers do you think they want to carry going into next season?
Well, Sean Bradley, we only count as a special teamer. Davion Taylor is on the roster, but remember, he's been cut before. Mm-hmm. Christian Ellis, I know they love him on special teams. He may get a chance to push for a decent role as a sub-package player. I mean, could he start? Outside chance, you never know. But they have to get to the off-season program first and get to the practice and so forth. So right now, the overview would be, because remember, they have 2 inside linebackers. Dean, almost certainly barring something unforeseen, is going to start. And the other job is wide open. Realistically, Morrow, and I would expect them to add another linebacker by training camp to compete. They just don't have enough bodies right now. They need more players. And then they'll go from there. But look, remember, both starters are now gone. T.J. Edwards signed his just over $6 million deal with the Bears. And Kaiser White signed a 2-year deal with the Cardinals. And as we outlined on Inside the Birds on Monday, you knew this was coming. 6 teams with former Eagles coaches or executives have signed players that used to play for the Eagles. I mean, you knew this was coming, Josh, and this is what happens. Kaiser White, we didn't really talk much about him when he left, but he was one of those rare one-year Eagle linebackers that actually did a pretty good job.
Speaking of guys coming in as other guys going out, let's switch over to safety. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is now in Detroit, and now the Eagles have Justin Evans. Talk about Justin Evans, who feels like to me it's another low risk, high reward kind of move.
Totally. In fact, here's what you can know about Justin Evans. It feels so bad for him. He spent the first 3 years of his career with the Bucs on IR. Did play some, then went on IR. Then went on PUP in 2020. Never played for them in 2020. Didn't play in 2021. was with the Saints last year, now with the Eagles. He's got a lot of ability. He was a second rounder in 2017 for the Bucs. He does turn 28 in August, which means he's 28 in NFL years. He's got what we call a make good contract. He's to get paid, he's got to make the team. He's an in the mix guy, is another coaching term. He's on there for a roster spot. There are no expectations. And by the way, just like inside linebacker, jobs are open. The Eagles don't know who their starters are yet. Both starters are gone. And Reed Blankenship is more of a third safety. And plus, the thing with Blankenship, though, was a great story last year making the team. He's not a guy like Gardner Johnson. One of the many reasons why you don't like that he left is because he's terrific with matchups, and particularly nickel. Or when teams spread you out, he could cover a lot. In fact, Gardner Johnson has covered tight ends before. They don't have that type of safety right now. So the Eagles are really down in safety numbers. They still have work to do at that position.
When you think about the fact that Marcus Epps, I mean, he played almost every snap last year. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he's gone. I mean, this has been a multiple years now that you have turnover at the safety position. You know, what for fans out there listening, Adam, what can they realistically expect from this team, considering the fact that at this time last year, C.J. Gardner-Johnson wasn't even here yet, and yet on March 21st is a long ways away from August.
And I'm glad you brought that up because you can't. I know the Eagles were just amazing. Howie Roseman had perhaps the best offseason of his career. 17 obviously was great, but 22 offseason was phenomenal. The way he just by week, by month, you didn't know what these guys would look like when they were signed or traded for, and then they wound up being great. Gardner Johnson obviously was like an incredible acquisition. You can't count on those things. But right now, so both safety positions are open. Kavon Wallace is a four safety. I mentioned Blankenship. Sasha Ray is more of a special teams player. Marquise Blair. But this is a guy, I remember seeing him in training camp with the Seahawks. He was a second rounder in 19, coming out of Utah. Boy, the Seahawks thought he was going to be their next great safety, but he too had major injury problems, and he was never the same, Josh. And unfortunately, his career took a downfall. But he's going to get a chance in this offseason to make the team.
Adam, speaking overall of this team, we mentioned how you numerous times about on the Inside the Birds podcast, Adam Caplan joining us Football at 4 at Caplan NFL on Twitter about another guy they have signed. He spoke to the media today. That's Greedy Williams. This is a guy who a lot of people thought very highly of coming out of college, and he's also here on one of these one-year deals.
Yeah, and the thing about him is he was a trades player coming out of LSU, just under 6'2", little thin. He, too, had so many injuries, IR20, IR22 last year. He was an underachiever, lots of injuries, turns 26 in December. Still a relatively young guy. Right now, as we stand here, he would be the odds-on favorite to be the third outside corner over Zach McPherson. They'll have a battle in training camp. They may not be done at corner. Obviously, they have the draft. They have 2 first-round picks. We'll see what they do. They want to take a look at Mario Goodrich and Josh Jobe as well, who are undrafted free agents last year, who they like. They'll bring them to camp, and we'll see what happens. But I suspect they're not done at the cornerback position. I'm not saying they're going to draft one in the first round. I'm just telling you by training camp, it wouldn't surprise anyone if they added another corner.
What is Greedy Williams at this point for the Eagles?
Yeah, he's a kind of a wait and see. We haven't got his contract details yet. We'll have more when we drop Thursday's show at 6 a.m. Eastern. With Mosher and I, we'll have more contract information. Fletcher Cox is in contract, by the way, which is interesting. They did something very interesting with his contract. But we'll try to get Greedy Williams' one-year deal breakdown. We know it's not a lot. But, what could he be? Well, the Eagles are pretty much locked in to Slay and Bradbury through 2024. But they need a developmental corner in the worst way. They need someone eventually who could be ready to play. And look, what if Greedy Williams, A, stays healthy for a change, and B, he starts looking like the player the Browns thought that they were drafting? Now you're onto something. Because if you look at Rashad Penny, Greedy Williams, and some of these and Marquise Blair and a couple other guys, you just kind of take a look at these guys. You see, there are no expectations. But I would say this, the Eagles have to be very, very careful. When you're bringing in injured players, there's a reason why they're on the street, why they didn't get re-signed by their former team. And some guys just simply cannot stay healthy, and you have to be careful. You can't let this cloud the way that you develop your roster. It's okay to bring these guys in, but you can't expect them to make the team.
I know a lot of Eagle fans really want them to draft a corner at that 10 spot. And I know a couple of years ago, the Eagles, you had reported they really wanted either J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain in that draft, and it just didn't work out. But it kind of did work out for the Eagles because they walked away with Devonta Smith. A lot of fans are looking at this roster saying there's not a lot of young guys here. I think that's part of the reason why that, the Eagle fan Adam is almost latching on, hoping that Greedy Williams can be something, because you know how Eagle fans are. They're always worried about worst-case scenarios. And part of that being, is Slay and Bradbury going to be healthy for a full year again?
Josh, and they would be right, because you've got two 30-year-old corners. Slay just turned 32. Bradbury turns 32 this summer, so he's 30 in NFL years. They don't have an answer outside corner behind these two veterans. And, if you talk to the Eagles at the Combine, I don't know if they projected it to go this way. You and I have been talked, I guess, for a while, Josh. The Darius Slay situation is one of the strangest in the 21 years I've covered this team in the NFL. They went from telling him, we're not bringing you back, we're going to save $17 million in cash, and we're going to post June 1 the contract to save cap space over time, to, we're going to bring you back, we're going to extend your deal, and we're going to fully guarantee it signing $23 million. So this was not their plan going back to the Combine. It just worked out this way. They walked away from Gardner Johnson, obviously, that they were trying to get him back, but it didn't work out the way they wanted it. This has been a strange free agency. It wasn't like last year. Everything seemed to like their plan worked out terrifically. Some things dropped in their lap. The Gardner Johnson situation, obviously, right before the season started, dropped in their lap. Who could have predicted that? But this one, Josh, is from an age standpoint, I think people should be concerned. You don't want to – the Eagles, I have to look this up. I'm guessing they have the oldest starting corner tandem in the league. I know they're really good. Look, they were terrific last season. One was a second-team All-Pro. James Bradbury and Slay made it. He was voted in as a starter in the Pro Bowl and well-deserving. But you have to be careful. It is rare to see a starting corner 33 or older. And if they keep Slay for 24, based by contract structure, they probably will. He would be bucking the trend, so to speak.
Talking with Adam Caplan, NFL Insider here at Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. And follow Adam on Twitter at Caplan NFL. Adam, let's flip to the offensive side, because you and I haven't talked since Marcus Mariota. Somewhere Chip Kelly is probably smiling, because Marcus Mariota is finally in an Eagles uniform.
8 years later.
Yeah, 8 years later. Talk to us about Mariota's fit here as the backup QB.
First of all, I cannot believe it's been 8 years when it was Sal Powell had to do the deal with Marcus Mariota. 8 years ago, I met Marcus at the Maxwell Club Awards. Super nice kid, tall, very athletic, average arm strength, but he fits the RPO-based scheme, offensive scheme that they kind of run sometimes. Well, a lot of it is off RPOs, but the bottom line is he fits what they do. So does Ian Book, and obviously Hurts does to a T. So he fits, but Mariota got benched not because the Falcons wanted to play Desmond Ridder. He got benched because he wasn't playing well. Let's call it like it is. He's had a major injury history. Yet another guy. This is a little bit concerning, Josh, as we go through both sides of the ball in terms of who they've signed. You do worry about these guys with injuries. Like the Eagles' injury situation last season was relatively good comparatively to the rest of the league, but you got to be careful with how many guys you sign with the injury history. But Mariota will be the 2. And Book will be the 3 as of now.
Why do you think they went Mariota and not a different direction? Because I talked with Mosher yesterday at Football at 4, and Jeff brought up that this was a good offseason to potentially get a backup quarterback. And in some ways, some could argue, maybe it's a little surprising that it was Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, and look, they wanted Minshew, but they knew they didn't make Minshew an offer. I do not believe, because they knew he had let them know that he wanted to go somewhere to compete for a starting job, or at least to play, and he's going to get that chance most likely with the Colts in terms of, hey, they're going to draft a rookie, and he would have a chance to do that there. At least not only be the number 2, but he's reunited with Shane Steichen. That I'm told was a huge deal. So they went to their second option, which was Mariota. And again, he fits the scheme. And remember, the Falcons cut him. They avoided a $3 million roster bonus, I'm told. So that's that. I mean, they've got their backup this season. And look, here's another thing. If if it all works out, here's another. We'll just move this forward here. Let's just say that. Let's say we know Hurts had some injuries the last 2 seasons, and the backup had to play. But when you look at it, let's say Mariota's healthy, right? He has a good training camp. I mean, it's not out of the question that he becomes the number 2 for 2024. So that's just something to keep in mind here.
We know that the offensive coordinator is now Brian Johnson. It's no longer Shane Steichen. Do you think that maybe Johnson had a little input into this at all because he himself is a former quarterback?
Well, Brian Johnson's a guy that did call plays at the University of Florida. We know he's very close to Jalen Hurts, and this is a guy, we reported at Inside the Birds, the Panthers. He was going to be Steve Wilkes' OC, and there were multiple teams that had interest in him to be an offensive coordinator. The Eagles think the world of him. But you got 2 new coordinators. Let's not forget that. Sean Desai is here for the first year. We reported first that he signed a 3-year deal. They extended Michael Clay's contract a year, we're told, gave him a little bit more money. So they believe in these coordinators. And Brian Johnson, he definitely has input because it's not just that he played quarterback. They want to bring in guys he's comfortable with. And Brian Johnson, people forget, was a terrific college quarterback at Utah. I don't know if people remember that, but he was actually a pretty good college quarterback.
Yeah, they had that upset of Alabama. I believe it was the Sugar Bowl years ago. So I double-checked that. But I know Utah beat Alabama in a bowl game years ago. Adam, one more before I let you go. Now that the Eagles have made the moves they have so far, what is, and again, I use the term realistic expectation moving forward as we get closer and closer, not just to the draft, but the off-season training activities?
Well, in terms of the roster, and again, we don't have enough time here, but something we'll be talking about Inside the Birds, what they do at right guard between Jurgens and Jack Driscoll. Do they draft one? Would it surprise anyone if they trade it back? If there's a big-time guard later in the first round, early in the second, do they draft one? That's something that we haven't talked about yet, but that's on our agenda at Inside the Birds. We'll be talking about that more. We know that they can never have enough edge rushers. Now, remember, the Eagles run an odd front, so do they look for an outside linebacker? Do they look for a defensive end? Do they do that? Obviously, corner, they don't have any young guys. Safety, they're barren there. So they still have a lot of work to do, but as we said last year, after the Reddick signing, it was a little quiet. We said, folks, the season doesn't start till September, it doesn't start in March. Relax, they have a plan, and we're going to trust that they have their plan, which we know they have one, but that they could execute it. Because they have to, look, they just got to the Super Bowl. They had this plan to let a lot of guys walk. They did. They brought a decent amount of guys back so far, which is a pleasant surprise. But they still have a lot of work to do.
And, of course, the Inside the Birds podcast, you mentioned that Greg Cosell drops tomorrow, and then your next inside information with you and Jeff drops Thursday this week, correct? Yeah, in fact, it's great. Tomorrow's show, we do edge rushers, both DNs. We do edge rushers, and we also do stand-up and outside linebackers. There are a ton of them. We probably cover 10 players for the draft. And we cover some of the signings the Eagles had, some other signings around the National Football League with Greg, and it's phenomenal. It's a good 45 minutes. That'll drop at 6 a.m. Eastern on every podcasting platform. Inside the Birds podcast. Like, subscribe, download, give it the 5-star review. Check out all the coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com and follow Adam on Twitter at Caplan NFL. Adam, great stuff today. Thank you.